On April 15, 1865, one of America's most beloved presidents died from a bullet wound inflicted the day before by John Wilkes Booth. After his funeral in Washington, D.C., New York City finally got to pay its respects to a president it both loved and hated. The city, adorned in traditional mourning black, watched with solemn respect as the funeral procession made its way down Broadway. Following the procession, estimated 150,000 people came to pay their respects to Lincoln's body, which lay in state at City Hall. Ironically, a city once known for its anti-Lincoln sentiments now became the nation's leader in memorializing the 16th President of the United States. Monuments and artwork glorifying the late president sprung up citywide. Although unified in their grief, New Yorkers were far from unified over Lincoln's policies as president. During his presidential campaign, Lincoln failed to win the hearts of New Yorkers, despite his well-attended appearance at the Cooper Institute. While Lincoln carried the state in the 1860 election, he lost New York City, a fact that would manifest itself in later anti-Lincoln sentiments in the city. During his first year in office, Lincoln continued to lose popularity as the secession of the southern states negatively affected New York businesses. However, despite this and other anti-Lincoln sentiments, the city swelled with support for the war after the Confederate attack of Fort Sumter. At one war rally in Union Square, around 250,000 New Yorkers expressed New York's desire to join Lincoln's forces to help save the Union from further dissolution. 30,000 volunteered for the Union Army within a month of the fall of Fort Sumter. Fervent support for the war began to dwindle, however, as New Yorkers became disenchanted by worsening economic conditions and military blunders that claimed hundreds of lives without securing much desired victories. Influential members of the Northern Democrats, or Copperheads, such as Samuel Morse, the inventor of the telegraph, and New York City's Mayor Fernando Wood fostered anti-Lincoln sentiments in the city by exposing the failure in Lincoln's administration. In the White House and on the battlefield, the Copperheads claimed Lincoln was dispensing a poisonous brew of sedition and fear. However, Lincoln enthusiasts, among whom were anti-slavery advocate Frederick Douglass and prominent newspaper man Horace Greeley, helped to stir up many pro-Lincoln supporters. The Emancipation Proclamation and subsequent policies of the Lincoln administration, like the Conscription Act, continued to polarize the city. Widespread resentment of the draft led several hundred rioters onto the streets, most of whom were impoverished Irish Americans. July 1863. The draft came to New York City. The most contested issue was a section of the Conscription Act, which allowed drafted men the option to get out of their wartime duties in exchange for a payment of $300. It was a hefty price at the time, with only the city's wealthiest able to afford bypassing the draft. New York's lower classes were outraged. Why should the poor shoulder the burden of a rich man's war? The strongly anti-Lincoln rioters targeted not only the wealthy, but also African Americans. For 4 days the city was rocked by chaos, as the rioting became increasingly violent. By the time the 7th Regiment, which had been recalled from Gettysburg, had quieted the revolt, over 120 people had died. But despite the bitter division that existed between pro- and anti-Lincoln forces, New York City came together to grieve for their common president after his assassination. He became known as the Great Emancipator. Memorials were erected in his honor, streets were named after him, and in the wake of his death, New Yorkers played an instrumental role in helping to establish Abraham Lincoln's legacy as one of the most influential presidents in United States history.